Namaste. Welcome to the Shaman The Mermaid, your astrology report for August 2nd all the way through the 19th, or actually 18th of August this time. And we are having an Aquarius Full Moon.
Yes, and the focus this time is on the inner planets, and they are fast moving. So I wanted to use the board this time so that we can kind of talk about them, since there's a lot of different aspects this time, because the personal planets are the ones that infect. And the personal planets are the sun, the moon, of course, and then Venus, Mars, Mercury, and we have another little friend playing with us this time. She's been playing with us all along, but she'll have a little more of a effect than we may have talked about in past reports, and her name is Eris, and she'll be running right along with Mars. So I wanted to put that into a visual for us, so we'll look to that. And because of the so much personal planet energy, so it's kind of like how you feel about things, how you act about things, how you think about things, and then how you show up with all of that, how you're showing up with your friends, your family, and society. That's the bigger piece going on, more than, say, the transpersonal planets, which is the collective consciousness, how everybody in society is working and showing up. And of course, one isn't without the other. Both are happening simultaneously. The individual and the collective are always in the picture. But this time, we see a lot more focus on the self more than the whole. So we came up with a theme because there's going to be a lot of trial and tribulation. We've been in the fire ever since, basically the first of the year, 2020's onset. We have felt this fire, and then it really kicked in with the COVID crisis in March. And then we've been treading this water, hoping for a little reprieve, just to be able to get out and have a good sunshiny summer. And it still feels like struggle, still feels like fire a little bit, and it's going to continue. You're going to see this pattern of struggle, strife, trying to get through, and that leads us to the theme of this time, and that is...
The only way out is through, so said Robert Frost.
Yes, that's from a line from one of his poems, The Servant and the Servants. And so... the only way out is through is sometimes not what we want to hear. We want to hear you can take a left at the next light and then it's a scenic bypass, or that you can turn around and easily backtrack out of this and then we'll make a new game plan from there. But it's like you're in the tunnel and there's no backing out because there's a whole bunch of cars behind you, and there's no exit stage left or right because you're in this tunnel. And so the only way out is through. And as we look at these different planets, how they're being affected by these upper planets up here, this is Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, and they're kind of really holding a lot of space, as is Uranus down here and Neptune. These are the transpersonal planets. These are the outside big dog planets in our solar system. And then the personal planets are the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and the Moon. They're the more inward planets in our solar system. And of course, the Sun is what we're all centering around. So these quicker, faster, inward planets are all kind of being addressed by these big outward planets, and it's going to feel a little bit like, what? I just want to time out. I just want to rest. I just want to stop. I just want an answer. I just want to know something. I just want certainty and groundedness. And you just got to keep going. Just got to keep going through. And you got to face some of the things we don't want to look at. You can't have a temper tantrum, and you're going to want to, as we'll point out here in a little bit. There's going to be some squares in this report that are really going to want you to, especially squares to Mars, that are going to want you to have a little temper tantrum and try not to let your fiery Mars energy go into temper tantrum mode. Instead, use that fiery warrior energy to just keep on trucking through. So right out of the chute, you want to talk about what hits us right on that new moon in Aquarius.
Yes, Monday, August 3rd is the full moon in Aquarius. And
full moon, sorry. Full moon.
And it is being squared by Uranus, who is the ruler of Aquarius. And this, in some ways, is a heralder of what we have been hoping for will be coming in 2022, 23, 24. When we say the only way out is through, it's not like we're talking in 2 weeks, it's through. The astrology is pointing to 2-3 years of time of shifting and uncharted territory. And when the planet Saturn returns into the sign of Aquarius, and then eventually Jupiter and Pluto in the year 2024, that's when a lot of this energy will shift. But from now until 2024, 23, 22, we're seeing the Capricorn energy, the patriarchy, the old systems being shook up, going into crisis, and then going into the attempt to grab power and pull back. You're seeing things crumble, so grab the gold, grab the guns, grab the laws, grab the personal freedoms, grab whatever you can so that you can hold on for as long as you can. And that's what we're seeing. And so Uranus is squaring all this, and Uranus is the planet that wants revolution, it wants change, it wants things to be innovative. And, not to say that Uranus doesn't care, but as an archetype, Uranus's energy is strictly about change. And how that change comes about, Uranus will have a conversation with Saturn and say, hey Saturn, what's the karma going on here? And Saturn goes, well, they're going along with the flow here. They're trying to change and they have some good karma. So Uranus says, let's give them a revelation then. Aha! Let's go ahead and have family farms and we'll all grow together and we'll come together in community. And then Uranus says, what about here? And he said, oh no, they're resisting completely to this karmic change. And Uranus says, okay, I'm going to throw a lightning bolt down here and it's going to create lots of chaos. So be aware of this revolutionary change energy, and how you're flowing with karma / dharma is going to play out on whether Uranus says revelation or lightning bolt.
I like that. That's a good analogy of it. So I just want to point out what he's talking about. Here's Uranus down here, and then here's Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. They're in the sign of Capricorn. Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, and this is the square. This makes the square. And so this is a big piece of it right out of the chute. And if you notice, the moon is in Aquarius. This is where the square will be. Saturn's about to move back in here shortly. These guys are heading over here. They're in Capricorn now, and they're kind of, that's where Michael's saying, looks like they're changing their ways. They're doing good. They should be able to have community farms and come up with some new education systems, and they're gonna have some new justice in their government. I think it's good. So Uranus says, okay, revolution. And then check in again, that karmic square. Capricorn is the karmic holder. Nope, they're resisting. They're being ugly. They're fighting. They're being selfish. They're hunkering down with their own individual needs and greeds. Okay, fire it up, lightning storm. So this is what he's talking about there. Moon is in Aquarius for this full moon. And whenever it's full, the moon and the sun are opposite each other. So the moon's in Aquarius and the sun's in Leo. This is opposite. So that means if these guys are squaring, Uranus and the moon are squaring, that means that Uranus and the sun are also squaring. So there's this T-shaped square between Uranus, the sun, or the moon and the sun. That's, to me, you could think of moon as yin energy and the sun as yang energy. And so Uncle Uranus, crazy Uncle Uranus, as I always refer to him to, he could go either way. Like, do you guys need a little booster shot, some support to help your revolution, or do you guys need me to slam on the brakes and throw you through the windshield? And so it kind of depends. Back to the part about there's that collective astrology, like everything's happening to all of us at the same time. The sun, the moon, everybody is all affected by it. But this is more, to me, a personal astrology time. And Uranus is saying how you are dealing with your own revolutionary energy. Aquarius is revolution, it's community, it's innovation, it's all that Einstein kind of, thinking of the bigger picture, outside the box, how to create beyond just our limitations. And your moon energy, where it's sitting in Aquarius, is how you talk about that to yourself. And are you having these conversations with yourself about your own ability to think outside the box as we're in this tunnel, as we are going forward? The only way out is through. You can still be having a lot of conversation with self on, okay, what are some of my strengths? How am I feeling about all this? What do I hold as important right now? What do I see myself doing in the future? Self-talk, that's the moon. If we're not having these conversations, we could get thrown through the windshield or the lightning bolt, or however you want to talk about Uranus's kind of abrupt lightning bolt energy. If we're having these conversations with ourselves, then we might get those revolutionary epiphanies, as Michael said, and we have like aha moments, and then we're driving in the tunnel, aha, when we get to 2024, 2022, whatever it is on the other side of this kind of crazy crisis, and there is an other side. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're not just driving into darkness forever, but it's a little longer than maybe perhaps what we're comfortable with. And so we could say, oh, when I get there, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start this plan. Same, the sun is squaring Uranus, and this is how we show up to the outside world, how our big sunshiny personality shows up to the outside of the world. And it's asking you, like, are you repping what you're talking? Are you showing what you feel inside? Or are you being a big fake? Or are you putting on a front? Which the sun in Leo, there's a lot of potential for putting on fronts, because Leo energy is the actor. It's the person on stage, and it might be, I'm great, doing great, money's good, kids are good, we're having a blast, summertime. Or the other side, total martyr, like, oh my God, it's so, oh my God. And then, so a lot of potential for facades and fakeness. And Uranus is like, oh, then I'm going to throw you through the windshield if you're doing that. Or, great, you're walking your talk, you're living your truth, you're being who you are on the outward as well as on the inward. Revelation time. Let's get there. Let's take that show forward, and you get the bright lights, big city stage. If we're doing that, this is that karmic check-in whenever you're at those T-bone crossroads kind of things, as we have with this big square right on the first day of this whole report, August 3rd, that Monday. And at the same time, there's opposition happening. And that's Mercury with Saturn, right across the wheel from each other. So you want to speak to that one?
It's kind of more of the same. Saturn is karma and society, and also where you hold your maturity or not. Saturn's job, astrologically, is to bring souls into deeper maturity, or personalities into deeper maturity, so that you can fulfill your purpose. And Mercury, opposite of that, is what you think you're hearing, what you're speaking, what you're communicating. What your nervous system is doing is opposite of, we're going to make you mature, whether your nervous system is ready for it or not. And so it can be tension. However, oppositions, while they're considered in traditional astrology as a little bit more tense, they can also be considered supportive. They're both at once, and so they're not either or. Squares are definitely tension. Oppositions can have both energies present, and it's like a conversation between the society and the elder and your mature self to the one that's learning and thinking and being like, are you being wise about what you're doing?
I like that it doesn't have to be either or. It can be a yes and in that. It's not always tensious. So just be aware that opposition between how you communicate and the law and order or karma of your being are either going to be on a even teeter-totter. You know, do you remember that when you were in the playground and you and your friend would go up and down and you try to get one higher, and then there would be that point where you both try to balance it and sit on the fulcrum point evenly and find that and pick up your feet? That would be a really good thing to do with Mercury and Saturn in their opposition this time. Okay, so then basically all the rest of the report, there's a couple bigger things we'll point out, is going to be Mars here and Venus and Mercury, these fast, smaller inner planets, the personal planets, as I mentioned. They're going to be cruising around the wheel, and they're going to keep having aspects to these bigger planets. So right out of the chute, the next day after the full moon, I think I keep saying new moon, but if I have, it's full moon in Aquarius. Right after that, on August 4th, is a big square between Mars and Jupiter. They're going to square off. And you want to talk about that one?
Mm-hmm. And this can sum up a lot of things that Mars is going to do. Mars is going to square Jupiter, Pluto, and on the other side of this report, after the new moon in Leo, which will be on the 18th of August, it will square Saturn on August 24th. So Mars is making this series of squares to those outer planets, the ones that we've been talking about all 2020 and really all decade and all century for affecting what's going forward. And Mars is in what it's called its shadow. Mars is starting to slow down. Mars, the warrior, is slowing his trot because he's about to go retrograde. It's like he was running forward. He's starting to look over his shoulder and be like, wait, I forgot something. And then he's going to go back and he's going to square Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto 3 times. Once, twice, 3 times. And so it's going to be could be a little bit deja vu, meaning like the energy you're threading right now is not once, not twice, it's going to be 3 times. And so be aware of how you're using your willpower, your masculine initiation energy, what you're jumping into. This whole time Mars is in a loose trine with Saturn, which I think is supportive, meaning the elder, the wise one. Saturn's job is to say, wait. Wait. Mars's job is to say, don't wait, go! And we need both. But Mars, with no weight, can just go and run into the street, and here comes the bus. Saturn, with no Mars, is going to sit back and, grow cobwebs over itself. So we need a little bit of both. So it's the gas pedal and the brake are working together, but it's good. Mars, which could be very intense right now in its home sign, making squares with all these big dogs, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn itself, is getting a little loose support from Saturn right now before it's like telling it, consider what you're doing.
Guidance. Yeah. So this is what he's talking about. Here's Saturn. Here's Mars. Saturn's about to move back into Aquarius, but it's retrograde into Capricorn.
And I said trine, I should have said sextile.
Sextile. So they're working together a little bit. But meanwhile, Mars is squaring Jupiter on the 4th of August. And then down the road, Mars is he's gonna move forward a little bit. And then that'll put him in a square on the 11th, I believe. No, when does Mars squares Pluto on August 13th. So first he squares Jupiter on the 4th. Then he squares Pluto on the 13th. Then he's going to square, he's been in that sextile Michael was talking about with Saturn, but then he moves even farther forward. And then he's going to square Saturn on the 18th, is that what you said?
24th.
Or 24th. Then he's going to go retrograde. We will talk about it when he gets there in September. And he's going to go back again. This is what Michael's saying. He's going to go back and square Jupiter, go back and square Pluto, go back and split and square Saturn as he goes retrograde back. Then he turns around and goes forward again, and he does the whole thing. Square Jupiter, square Pluto, square Saturn as he comes forward again, and that time direct. So the reason we point that out, as Michael was saying, is he's kind of cutting a groove. He's coming forward, starting to look back, saying, I need to go back again. Then he's going to turn around and go back over that same trail and forward again. So Mars is your I am energy. I am powerful. I am strong. I am courageous. I am beautiful. I am creative. Whatever it is that you feel a surge of in your initiation, your charge in life. So he's charging through with that. And so whatever you're charging through with at this time right now in your mind, the thoughts that you have running through your head, your I am. So be careful, because if the I am not worthy, I am not good enough, I suck, if you're doing that, you're carving a path so that you can turn around, go back over it again and really set it in, and then cruise back through it again. It's like walking through shit 3 times. So be careful. You want to make sure that what you're charging through, or another one that's typical of Mars energy, is an arrogant attitude, just full of yourself. Like, I got it, I'm all that. And you cruise through thinking I'm all that, and then you retrograde through that, all that, then forward again, all that, and then you're going to end up in another pile of shit at the end when you're too much of yourself. So you got to be careful of what you're thinking at this time in your I am statements. We use these I am statements as sankalpas all the time in our yoga practice, or setting intention, writing in your journal like I am. And so use really positive intention, especially for the rest of this year, because Mars is going to be doing this little trick back and forth all the way up until the end of the year, into actually first part of January. So am I right on that?
That's when he leaves Aries.
First part of January. So when he finally steps out of his retrograde shadow, I think it'll be about that time. Lot there. But that's basically what Mars, your powerhouse, needs to go up against, is, in my opinion, be really aware of what you're holding as intention, as your drive force right now. And then we'll move on. Mercury is going to move into Leo. I have him already there into it, but he's been in Cancer. He'll slide into Leo, and he's going to be eventually conjunct the Sun on the 17th. But he moves into Leo on the 4th, same day as Mars squares Jupiter over here. So that is, remember, Leo is that stage energy. You want to talk about Mercury and Leo?
Sure, and Mercury's going as fast as he goes. Boo! He's going to be through the sign of Leo in 2 weeks. In and out. And Leo is the expression energy, it's creation. And so there's going to be maybe a lot of initiation of what you want to create at this time, though. You're thinking about it, you're drawing plans, you're telling people about it, you're reading up on it. And so this is that energy of doing research, or it can be. In Leo is, what do I want to create? What do I want to do? And you may feel a sudden burst of that energy, because in Cancer it was like, what do I feel? Am I safe? Let me wrap up. I feel this, blah. And now it's like, okay, go do something about it, or go create something, or move that energy somehow, like move the body to help move the mind. If your mind's been stagnant on that either arrogance, the Mars energy, or I'm a piece of crap energy, Mercury and Leo might say, to get the mind reactivated, go take a hike, go take a walk, go take a swim, go do something active, go make some art, go dance, go play some drums.
Get on the stage, express. This is full expression time. Sun and Mercury together in Leo, expression, full blast, like roar, like the lion. I actually love these two together because I think it's a great time for us to let out some steam. To let things roar like the lions. But again, right intention. Keep that intention in right way. So that's a big one. And then the moon is going to cruise on over. After it's the full moon, it takes 2.5, 3 days, and it cruises into the next sign. So then it goes into Pisces over here, which is where Neptune is. So a personal planet's going to come right up next to a transpersonal planet. And now the moon is, again, how we talk to ourselves, our inner feelings, what, how we're nurturing ourselves. And Neptune is our spiritual aptitude. It's also our delusion. And it's in the sign of Pisces, a watery sign, which the moon is watery, Neptune is watery. They get together. There could be a big pity party here. Like, whoa. And it could also be like a, whoa, I am feeling really some of this aptitude that I have. I feel great spirit. I feel connected. I feel the flow of my force in me, my Shakti, my Kundalini. It could go either way, as all these signs and planets and aspects have this way or that way. It's just your free will gets to govern that. So when these two come together on the 6th of August, you have a chance to harness some of your spiritual prowess. Great day for meditation, great day for inner reflection, great day for journaling, great day for praying. All days are good for all of those things, but it's especially highlighted, and imagination galore.
Good day for a sensory deprivation tank.
Yes, it is. Ooh, and we have one scheduled. So excited about that. Okay, so then we keep cruising, and then on the next day we have Venus right here, and she's going to move out of Gemini into Cancer. We're going to talk about Venus in Cancer.
Venus likes being in Cancer. She was not so happy in Gemini. Venus wants to feel, and Gemini wants to think and analyze. And so now Venus gets a little reprieve, or our sense of self-love, our sense of what our values are, get a little more feeling than thinking. And so it's transferring out of what do I think would be good for the bank account, what do I think would be good for my parents' opinion. Now it's like, what do I feel about what's good for me or what's good for my own journey. So she'll be happier there, though she could be more moody there. It's a yes and. And then on Sunday, August 9th, we have Mercury making a trine to Chiron.
We don't have a symbol for Chiron on here, but Chiron is in the sign of Aries. And so this would be our little trine here. Why is that significant? First of all, we like trines. Trines mean harmonious aspects. Things are working together for us. Chiron's our wounded healer, where we hold some of those wounds, but also where we work through our wounds. And then Mercury, how does that trine work?
The wounded healer can be the teacher in that point, like the things that you've once failed at or made mistakes at or have repeated samskaras at or trauma around can be a teacher for you, and a teacher to help you go forward with what your Mercury's transmitting it. So you might help another person, another group of people, put something out there that's teachable and helpful.
And I'm going to remind us of the theme, the only way out is through. And these personal planets that we keep talking about, Mars, Venus, Mercury, are all aspecting these bigger planets for our own sense of self-awareness, to start to develop our game plan, to keep our momentum going, to not get stymied and stagnant or panicked or even blow up in some of that resentful energy. So that trine, again, we don't have a little symbol, but if you can imagine Chiron sitting here, that trine between the two is giving you a chance for that inner dialogue to really talk through and work through some of those wounds, because then after that beautiful trine with Mercury and Chiron for that inner dialogue, then Mercury is going to, oops, he fell out of place here. Mercury is going to square Uranus, and ugh, there's Uranus again. Uncle Uranus that could go like, hey, revolution, or hey, throwing you through the windshield. So Mercury is how we talk to others and ourselves. It's how we think. And Uranus is that innovation, and they're squaring to each other. So what I see potentially there, after we've just had this trine with our Chiron, where we're like, oh, I'm really proud of myself for working through some of my wounds, then we might turn around the very next day and then say to ourselves something devastating, like I'm not good enough again. We could go right away from that healing trine into a very defensive kind of attitude about ourselves. So I'm suggesting that from that 9th and 10th of August, when we're loving on ourselves, keep that self-love flowing and take it into that Uranus square. Because remember, sometimes even though squares have that potential for disharmony, there is that, I always like to say, dovetail possibility where two things could just click together. So you could let that Mercury energy dovetail with that revelation energy. Communication and revelation could go together. Then we cruise on to the half moon, which will be in Taurus by then. The moon will have cruised over here. And it's going to be squaring the three big dogs. Trining the three big dogs at the top. And then we have that Mars Pluto square. We've already talked about it. And then we go back to some issues with Uranus. And what is that?
Uranus goes retrograde on August 15th on Saturday, and it will be retrograde until January 2021. When the outer planets go retrograde, it's not so noticeable immediately, but it's like a slow, long-term whoa, and there's no stopping it. Uranus retrograde, we've talked about the revolutionary energy. It also is one's personal unconscious. Freud and Jung talk about the collective unconscious, and Uranus is your personal unconscious. That part of you, that part of the iceberg, the 95% below the waterline that you don't know that you don't know. So you're like, what do I need to know about that? You don't know. It's really the 95% of your soul that's not bloomed and expressed into your personal self. Uranus's job is to bloom and blossom the soul into the material world. That's its job. Whether it does that nicely or forcefully, again, it's the lightning bolt of the revelation. When you have revelations, part of your soul comes through and you go, wow! And then when there's a crisis, you're cooked down to the element of what's most important to the soul. So when Uranus is retrograde, there's a lot of self-introspection about who am I? What really am I? More than just my ego, my bank account, my whatever you define yourself by in the material physical world. Uranus wants to say, what do you define yourself by in the spiritual, non-physical world?
I actually am looking forward to that retrograde because I think it kind of gives us a little bit more, if we're in the tunnel and the only way out is through, and part of what we're trying to get through on the personal level is like, what do I want to do? If I have to reinvent myself, if I have to, come through the other side of this into a whole new world, what am I going to be doing? What am I going to be thinking, feeling? All of it. We're really, there's so much uncertainty for the collective and there's so much uncertainty for the individual. So that retrograde of what our soul's purpose is, what we really are trying to bloom into, as Michael said, we get to, we don't have to go through the tunnel so fast. We can kind of take a little bit of a slower through the turns and take a closer look at things. At least that's the way I like to paint it in my mind as an opportunity for. And I want to point out that the outer planets, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, are all retrograde right now. They're all in retrograde. So all this big collective consciousness is taking it a little slower. It doesn't feel like it, I know. But this is a slower momentum of these planets so that we can really grasp this. And thank goodness they're in retrograde, because if they weren't in retrograde, I think this would feel a little bit more like a whiplash, even though this is jolting our system as is. Imagine if they weren't retrograde. So this is like letting us kind of ease into all of this big cataclysmic change that we're going through. All the structures are changing, and it's going slow on purpose so that when we arrive on the other side of the tunnel, we will have been able to breathe through it.
I think it's a little bit like the great-grandmother making tortillas. She's slowly grinding the corn, not quick.
Yeah.
The Mayans call it Ishmukane. She's in the heart of the earth. She's grinding our bones for our karmas, and then tortillas will come out on the other side.
Yeah, and they taste so good. Fresh homemade tortillas, worth the wait. This is going to be worth the wait if we can hang in there. So not too much more after that. There's some trines with the Sun and Mars, which is good. And remember, all along that we've been talking about Mars has his sister there with him, Eris. And they're cruising along in their home sign together. So when we talk about squares from Mars, that's also including Eris's too. The Sun will be in a trine with Mars and Eris on the 16th. And Mercury will be in a trine because they're together. These two are together. So Mercury will also be in a trine with Mars and Eris on the 16th. And to me, that's, again, trines are harmonious. What would you say about those aspects?
It's like your masculine and feminine self, the warrior side, both of them, are being activated by your heart and your thinking creativity in Leo and Aries. So this might be the, if you've been thinking, working, feeling, getting through stuff, this could be like, go, do it, start now. You mean really now? No, really, start now. Start doing what you've been calling in at this time, because having Mars and Eris riding together harmoniously with the Sun and with what you've been thinking, planning, investigating, gathering information on, they're saying, you got this.
Mm-hmm. It's that, gentlemen, start your engines.
Ladies.
Yeah, I know, but that's the old way, huh? Ladies and gentlemen,
peoples of the universe.
Start your engines. Okay, and then on that same day, though, that's happening, Venus is going to, remember, you can't see our Chiron planet over here, but Venus is going to square Chiron on that same day that there's a nice harmonious trine and you're starting your engines. So we had that trine with Chiron and Mercury, and that kind of let us feel our feels and give ourselves some atta girl, atta boy for working with our stuff and kind of working with our shadow. And then now Venus is going to go and kind of attack on some of those wounds. And so this Venus is our heart, our feelings, and she's in Cancer, feelings and feelings. It's our values, it's our sense of abundance and our prosperity, and it's going to square with our wounds. And so we might feel things around how we look, how we feel, might feel a little wounded around our values, around maybe not feeling valued. That's probably a big piece of that Venus-Chiron square, is not feeling like we're valued, maybe feeling taken advantage of in some places of our life. So whenever you have a forewarning of some of these tender moments or tough moments where we might be challenged, squares, it's always good to have a heads up. I put those days on my calendar like, this is that day it's going to square. Let's not let it affect us. Let's work through it in our right way, take our middle path, or move into the energy that's more positive that way. There's always two sides to the coin, always on these. And then finally, we've been talking about them being close, but they actually come conjunct on the 17th, Sun and Mercury. And then where's our Sun and Mars? Is it Aries and Mars will be exact conjunct on the 17th too. So they're close, but exact on the 17th. Then it ends up in a new moon in Leo. That means our little moon friend will have cruised all the way around next time we report and end up next to the sun instead of opposite of the sun in the sign of Leo. And that's where we'll pick up the next time. So good luck in your travels, on your personal journeys for the next 2 weeks. Remember, the only way out is through, and use that Mars energy to be a brave soul and get through it. And we'll see you on the other side.
Namaste.